On a cold, rainy night in 2003, Daniel, a long-haul truck driver, found himself navigating a lonely stretch of highway in Pennsylvania. After hours on the road, fatigue had set in, yet he was determined to complete his route before dawn. The storm raged relentlessly, the heavy downpour pounding against his windshield and reducing visibility to mere shadows and blurred shapes. Every raindrop seemed to echo his isolation on this deserted highway. As Daniel maneuvered around a sharp corner near an old, abandoned motel, his headlights illuminated a figure standing alone by the roadside. There, in the downpour, stood a young woman in a pale blue dress that clung to her thin frame. Soaked through and shivering, she appeared fragile against the storm's fury. Despite the tempest, her presence was strangely still and silent, as if she were part of the night itself. Feeling a mix of concern and an inexplicable pull to help, Daniel slowed his truck and pulled over beside her. He rolled down the window and gently asked, "Are you okay? Do you need a ride?" The woman offered a silent nod, her face as pale as the mist, devoid of any expression. Without uttering another word, she stepped into the truck. As she did, water dripped from her wet dress onto the floor, marking her passage into his cab with a sense of quiet inevitability. Once she was seated, Daniel attempted to break the silence with small talk. "Where are you headed?" he asked, hoping to ease his own growing unease. In a voice barely above the sound of the rain, she whispered, "Home." She then provided an address, a small town located 20 miles away without elaboration, leaving Daniel to wonder about the story behind her hurried journey. As they drove onward, the atmosphere inside the truck grew increasingly oppressive. The woman remained eerily quiet, her eyes fixed ahead, her gaze blank and unresponsive. Every so often he noticed her hands, chillingly cold to the touch despite the car's heater, as if life itself had drained from them. The silence was heavy, laden with an unspoken dread that Daniel could neither shake nor fully understand. After about 20 minutes on the road, they finally arrived at the address she had given him, a decrepit Victorian house with dark, uninviting windows that spoke of abandonment and forgotten memories. "We're here," Daniel said, his voice betraying both relief and trepidation as he turned to look at his passenger. But the woman had vanished. The seat was completely dry, empty of any trace of her presence. Panic surged through Daniel as his heart pounded in his chest. In the freezing air outside, his breath formed visible puffs as he scrambled from the truck and approached the house, desperate for answers. With trembling hands, he knocked on the door, each rap echoing in the silent, storm-soaked night. After what felt like an eternity, an elderly woman opened the door. Her eyes widened at the mention of the hitchhiker. "You saw Emily, didn't you?" she asked, her voice shaking with a mix of sorrow and fear. Daniel nodded slowly, still unable to grasp the impossible reality of the encounter. Taking a deep breath, the woman continued softly, "My daughter died in a car accident on that highway 20 years ago. Every year, on this very night, she tries to come home." Her words fell like heavy raindrops, each one intensifying the chilling atmosphere that had already enveloped Daniel. A shudder ran down his spine. Overwhelmed by the haunting revelation, he stepped back, his mind racing with disbelief and dread. Without another word, he rushed back to his truck and started the engine, eager to leave behind the spectral encounter. As he sped away, trying to outrun the terror of that night, Daniel couldn't help but glance into his rearview mirror. For a fleeting, heart-stopping moment, he saw Emily standing on the porch of the old house, her eyes locked onto his, as if silently bidding him to remember. Then, as quickly as she had appeared, she vanished into the darkness, leaving behind only the echo of her sorrow and a lingering question. What had he truly witnessed on that stormy night? Question. What had he truly witnessed on that stormy night?